Hi, this is Brian Larsen. You can find me on larsenbridge.com for a free consult. Today, I'm continuing my series about how to elevate your career from superstar to superstardom. Last week, I covered how to be the CEO of your own career. It's chess, not checkers. Be cool, be curious, be collected. Today, I'm going to give some practical examples. These talks I give on a regular basis when the situation fits. They're not always going to fit for your situation, but they're fun ones for me. And so I hope you find them fun too. Comment which one is your favorite below if you'd like. Glad to have the engagement and glad to talk to you anytime for free. No catch, ever. The thing that got me started down this road was a conversation I've had with a few different people over time who are really smart people. They have a really good opinion to offer, really good facts, and sort of a good understanding of subject matter expertise that they really need to share. But when I see them share it, I pull them aside afterwards and I say, listen, you're smart. You get this. You got it. But when you interact with other people, you're all knees and elbows. You ever try to hug somebody who's all knees and elbows? It's hard to bring them in and work with them. So I use that analogy to say, like, look, it's just sharp edges with you. You need to figure out how to soften the edge. And let me just say this, frankly, I understand from a position of white male privilege that I don't get talked over in meetings the way that women do. And my opinion isn't devalued the way that minorities are. So I want to be clear about that. I'm not saying this applies to everybody in every situation, and sometimes you have to be forceful with your opinion. But if you're all knees and elbows all the time, people don't want to pull you in. And that leads me to one of my first talks I give. This is particularly for new leaders. But I tell them, look, back in the day, in the 80s and early 90s, baseball was a little more volatile. There were more on-field fights and sort of like beating batters and sort of like really animosity among teams. And sometimes they go on for years. I mean, the Angels and the Mariners had like a feud that lasted for several years in which they'd beat players and they'd rush them out and they'd fight. But even earlier than that, back in the day in the 80s, like the Yankees were famous for having hired and fired Billy Martin 3-4 times. And this guy's volatile. And a move that used to happen regularly with managers, and not all the time, but 2, 3, 4, 5 times a season, a manager would be so fed up with the performance of his club that he'd walk back into the dugout and he'd smash the Gatorade container, just blow it up, blow up the cups, and the whole team would go, oh, whoa. And I'm sure back in the locker room, he'd give them some sort of speech like, listen, our effort's not there. The quality of play isn't there. All of our jobs are on the line, and I need you to figure it out because I'm mad, and you should be mad too. That's a tool you have in your toolkit. Whether you're a leader or you're a superstar and you're trying to work with colleagues and sort of get them riled up about something, it's a tool in your toolkit to knock over the water, knock over the Gatorade. But I suggest to people that if you do that a second time, you start to look like the crazy one. You start to look like the person that's unhinged. And so I'd think long and hard about ever using that tool in your toolkit. In fact, I'd never use it. Because there are other ways to get your point across and communicate with people and convince people to move in a different direction than the one they're going in. You don't have to kick over the water cooler. And interestingly, managers don't do that anymore. Players still do. You'll see players do this when they get mad about a call or they got thrown out or they got pulled out of a game when they thought they should be still pitching in the game. But the managers don't do it anymore. What does that tell you? It leads me to my second story. And I've had employees go, listen, you really are going to give an analogy from The Godfather? This is crazy. But it has a point. Quick recap for everybody. If you haven't watched The Godfather, you should. It's a great film. Sonny Corleone is the heir to the Corleone family donship. They're the head of the 5 families in New York. He's played by James Caan, great actor. And there's a scene fairly early on in the movie when James Caan's sister, Sonny Corleone's sister, Connie, she gets abused by her husband. It's a domestic violence incident. And Sonny Corleone goes and chases him down in the streets of New York and beats him furiously. In fact, James Caan went so over the top in that scene, he broke 2 of the actor's ribs while he was beating him with a trash can lid. I mean, it's an iconic scene. He leaves him in the fire hydrant stream and says, listen, if you do this again, I'm going to find you. I'm going to kill you. Fast forward to the middle of the movie. The Don's been shot. He's still alive, but Sonny's sort of running the family while Michael's out of town. And it happens again. Connie gets beaten by her husband, and she immediately calls Sonny. And what does Sonny do? Sonny runs out of the house without protection, goes to go find this guy and kill him. And at the toll booth, he gets ambushed and murdered. shot like 50 times. It's a very dramatic scene. Then fast forward again to the end of the movie, Michael Corleone has Connie's husband isolated at the end of the movie, and he says, listen, we know you did it. We know you set him up. We just need to know if it was Tattaglia or Barzini. And he admits who it was, and they figure that part out. But if you rewind then, it was a setup, you see. They knew Sonny's weakness. He was the kick over the water cooler guy. He was the kick over the Gatorade container guy. And so they plotted. They played chess with him, not checkers. And they set him up. They gave him something they knew he would react to, and they went and got him. And that leads me to the third thing I said I'd discuss this week, and that's the Jedi mind trick. It's, again, I want to be clear. This is not Machiavellian. I'm not asking you to manipulate people. I don't think that's a good thing. I think you need to be honest with who you are. But you need to buff out the weaknesses in your game. You need to unsharpen those elbows and knees so that you don't get caught like Sonny. People can't see how to get to you and how to disarm you and how to weaken your stance and your opinion and your position and your intelligence and your superstardom. You need to buff that out a little bit, make it a little smoother, a little more clever, a little more chess, a little less checkers. The Jedi mind trick, it reminds me of, there was a place I worked, ton of smart people, and one particular individual, they were known for being in meetings, they would be very aggressive. So they'd have an opinion, their opinion was certainly the right one, and if you disagreed with that person, they would light you up in the meeting and just like sort of attack you. They were all knees and elbows, all the time. And everybody knew it. And people talked about this person when they weren't around. I don't think that's a good thing to do, and so I don't do that. I would say, yeah, they have an opinion, and they are certainly confident in that opinion, that kind of feedback. But I had a situation which I was going to a meeting, and I knew this was going to happen to me. I knew the position of this person was X, and my expertise is, no, speaking for the customer, I've got to talk about it as Y, and we need to find a middle ground here. I need this person to help me accomplish what's right for the customer. So sure enough, I got into a meeting, presentation happened. I sort of raise some other considerations, and I do it sort of disarmingly. I do it plainly, right? I say, well, tell me how you think about this impacts the customer, and how we're going to move the needle with the customer with this move. Because I know that explaining that's going to be 17 steps to get there. Well, if we do this, then this happens, and that happens, then it happens, and eventually the customer benefits. So, from my perspective, I think we got to really unpack that and start with the customer and lean into what we're trying to do here so that it's guided by them. And I got attacked again. And one of the strategies I used there was to smile and laugh a little. Not in an insulting way. It would just be like, let me point out sort of to the rest of the room that I recognize this exchange is over the top. It's knees and elbows, and it's a little ridiculous for professionals to be conducting themselves this way. But it's not going to faze me. I might not be 100% right, but I know this direction we're going in is not right either. And so we need to find a middle ground, and let me give you the opportunity to expose that weakness in your approach so that everyone can sort of get their opinion in, and we can start to get an approach that's going to work for the customer. It's like you're on a battlefield. I'm not just going to line up all of my soldiers next to your soldiers and we're just going to go head to head and smash each other. It's not clever. It's just the biggest, strongest, fastest weapons win. No. You got strategy. You're going to use a little Jedi mind trick. You're going to be like, hey, let you talk yourself out of what the approach you're taking is not maybe the best one. And then let me flip it on you. When you get it right, I'm going to praise you. I'm going to make it seem like you are the best person, you're the smartest person, because you're going to come back to me for that feedback again. You're going to come back and say, yeah, last time I did that, I got it right. And boy, Brian, he preached and praised my work for the company, and boy, that felt good. I want that feeling again. So we covered baseball, The Godfather, and the Jedi mind trick. Next week, we'll be on to the next part of this series, and that's how to take all this, package it up, and turn it into a promotion. Your next role. Sound good? Thanks for stopping by. Come find me at larsenbridge.com. I look forward to hearing from you, and thanks so much for spending time with me. Have a great weekend, everybody.